Hi everyone, today we're talking about how to match equations to coordinates on a line. As a reminder, you do not need to write down everything we'll cover in this video, but be sure to jot down important information and at least one example of each type of problem that we'll cover. Also remember that you can pause to jot down important notes, rewind to view information again, and fast forward if you think you already got it. Be careful, make sure you don't fast forward too much that you end up missing out on something important. So to get started, as a review, we are talking about our x and y variables, which are also known as our cause and effect, or independent and dependent variables. The x is going to cause the y to change. That's why it's called the independent variable. It doesn't depend on anybody. But the y, the effect, is going to depend on the x and what's happening to x in order for it to change. And remember, it's in alphabetical order. You can also remember independent, dependent makes ID. And in a story, for instance, it's cause and effect. So order is very important here. All right, so today we are talking about how to basically go from an equation to coordinates on a coordinate plane. So we're going to start off with an example of an equation. And I'm going to just create this, okay? So I'm going to create the equation y equals 2x minus 1. And when I have that equation, that's kind of like my rule. So I can then create a table with that equation. So I've laid out two different types of tables for you. You can either create a horizontal table, and horizontal just means going from left to right, or you can create a vertical table. Vertical tables go up and down. Either way, we're going to fill out both of them to show you that they're both the same, they just look a little different. So for the x values, I'm just going to put in numbers there, okay? I'm going to put in like 1, 2, 3, and 4. So remember, your x values are your independent variables, so it doesn't really matter what they are. The y values you can't make up because that's going to depend on what the x is. So normally for x values, we just put numbers in order, and then remember later on we're going to put those x values into the equation, the rule, and that's going to give us the order of operations, and then it's going to spit out our y value, which is our dependent variable. So for this first one, if x equals 1, instead of y equals 2 times x, I'm going to have 2 times 1 minus 1. And according to GEMS, my order of operations, no groupings, no exponents. I do solve my multiplication or division first, and then solve my addition or subtraction, whichever comes first. So here I have multiplication first, 2 times 1 is 2. Then my subtraction, 2 minus 1 is 1. So whenever x is equal to 1, it's going to multiply by 2 and then subtract 1, and the y value will also equal to 1. Okay? So that's all we're doing. Next, we're going to replace the x with 2. So instead of y equals 2 times x, we're going to have 2 times 2 minus 1. GEMS, order of operations, tells us we have to multiply first. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we subtract. 4 minus 1 is 3. So whenever x is equal to 2, y is going to equal to 3. That's all that means. We have two more values. For y equals 2 times x, instead of 2 times x is 2 times 3, because all I'm doing is I'm replacing my x value with 3. So we're just following this rule right here and replacing our independent variable. So we end up with 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. So whenever x is equal to 3, y is equal to 5. And notice how the tables, they just either go left to right or up and down. We're still pairing the ones together, pairing the 2 and 3 together, pairing the 3 and 5 together, okay? And then our last x variable that we put there was 4. So now instead of 2 times x, we have 2 times 4 minus 1. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 1 is 7. So whenever x is equal to 4, y is equal to 7. Okay? So that's how you would create your own table. You're just creating your own numbers for x, and then you're replacing it in there for y. Now, the last part to this is when we would change this into a graph. Okay? So now that we have these values, we're going to now put them into a graph. So again, this is what our table looked like. Okay. Now, here's where people get a little confused. How do we change this table into points on a graph? Well, very easy. From a vertical table, all we're doing is we're changing those pairs into an ordered pair. This way. Okay, so we're just putting a parentheses between them parentheses around them and a comma between them. Because remember, x has to go first in your order pair, then y. Here, we would do the same thing. 1, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, so each of those pairs would go together. And then when you have your blank coordinate plane, remember your x always goes first on the bottom. Just like on your coordinate plane, you have x and y. X is on the bottom, y is on top. Your x-axis is your independent variable. So if I were to plot 1, 1, I would just look for 1 and 1, put a dot there. If I were plotting 2 and 3, I would look for 2 first. Remember, you gotta walk and then fly. Walk to 2, and then fly up to 3. 1, 2, 3. Next one, 3 and 5, walk to 3 and fly up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so each of those points you're going to walk first and then fly. Walk to 4, fly up to 7. Okay, and then you should make a straight line because they're all following that same rule. All right. Please make sure that you have this written down in your notes before we move on to some examples on Khan Academy. All right. Let's do some problems on Khan Academy. This problem says, which rule describes the relationship between x and y coordinates in the following graph? You have two different possibilities. Either y equals x minus 1 or y equals x plus 1. So here, they already gave you points on the graph, and they gave you two possible equations. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to now change these points into a table, okay? So this right here is 2, walking to 2, and then flying up to 3, 2, 3. This one right here, walk to 5, fly up to 6. This point right here is walk to 7, and then fly up to 8. Okay, so if I have an XY table, my X values would go first. That's 2, 5, and 7. The 2 was matched with 3, the 5 was matched with 6, and the 7 was matched with 8. So now I am just going to try which of these equations works, okay? It's either x minus 1 or x plus 1. So look at your x value and your y value. Is your x subtracting 1 to get to y, or is your x adding 1 to get to y? If you said that it was adding 1 to get to y, you are correct. So then we know that the answer is y equals x plus 1. all our x values needed to add 1 to get to their y value pair. Okay, so that's all you do for problems like that when they give you a graph already. You know those points on there correspond to x and y points on a table, and then if they give you more than one equation, you're just testing them out. And in this case, x added 1 in order to get to y. You remember your independent variable had to do the actual changing so that it could affect your dependent variable. Let's try one more. All right, in this problem, they're asking you which graph represents xy pairs that make the equation y equals 0.5x plus 5 true. 0.5x plus 5 true. So they have 3 choices for you. 0.5x plus 5. Oops. So go ahead and pause your video, see if you can solve this one on your own first. All right, I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to change each of these into a table, and then I'm just going to test out that equation that they gave me. So I have xy pairs. Let's see, this one is walk to 0, fly up to 5. So 0, 5. This point is walk to 4, fly up to 2, 4, 2. This is walk to 8, fly up to 3. Okay, so I'm going to do that same thing for each of these. So 1 and 0, 3 and 4, and then 6 and 10. Okay, and then my last one here, I have 2 and 6, 4 and 7, and 6 and 8. Okay, so I just made tables for them. Now I'm going to replace my x with the x value, multiply it by 0.5, which is really finding half of it, and then add 5 to it. Okay, so let me check and see if that works. So I'm finding half of x, then I'm adding 5 to it. So what's half of 0? Half of 0 is still 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. Yes, that's good. Half of 4 is 2. 2 plus 5 doesn't equal to 2. So this one already doesn't work. Okay, so remember I'm finding half of x, then adding 5. Half of 8 is 4. 4 plus 5 doesn't equal 3. So that one definitely doesn't work. Let's try this one. Half of 1 is a half. A half plus 5 is 5 and a half. So that one doesn't work either. Nope. Looks like it might be C. Half of 2 is 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. Yes. Half of 4 is 2. 2 plus 5 is 7. Yes. Half of 6 is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. Yes. It looks like it's that last one here. And it works. So you are just testing to see which of those x and y values work together with that equation they gave you, that rule. So knowing how to change a graph to a table really helps you out. You can really organize your numbers easily. Let me know if you have any questions as you work on these problems, and I'll see you in class.